And so when people say, hey, I don't know if I have the right to receive these markings, is it all right if I receive these markings? I'll say, often my response is, as long as you have a place in your heart for Indigenous rights, when you receive these kind of sacred markings or really special parts of a culture, you don't want to just take the best and leave. You want to receive and make sure that it's feeding something in you that helps you be a better person in the world. Kia ora.
Kia ora. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I would like to start, as we always do here, with a brief presentation from you. Please feel free to do it also in te reo.
Cool, thank you. O tēnā tātou, buonasera. Heuri tēnei no ngā mātāwaka, o tira no te arawa, no tainui, a takitimu, a horoita, a matātua hoki. Me ngā pānga ki tēnā iwi o rātou. Tēnā heuri tēnei hoki no te whānau Yates, te whānau Hodge o Rotorua. Ana, tēnei au e mihi nei. So my name is Mokonuiarangi. My whānau are Māori and Pākehā. Māori on my mother's side. And my grandfather's side has tribal connections to the Maniapoto area and to the Rotorua area, so central North Island. And my grandmother's side is the East Coast tribes. And then my papa's side's Pākehā from the Coromandel. And it's lovely to be here.
Nice. So I would like also to ask you if you can actually explain the meaning behind your name, because when I read about it in an interview that you've made, I was like, damn, it seemed that his path was written in the stars.
A little bit. It's a name I was given because my uncle Mokonuiarangi carried the name, and he didn't have any children, so I carried his name on, and he carried that name from a kraua, one of our elders on the East Coast, Puka Mokonuiarangi, and it's the name of a mountain down on the East Coast. So the literal translations would be great tattoo in the sky, moko nui being great or large, rangi in the sky or of the sky. The other interpretation is great lizard in the sky. And then there's kind of a metaphorical idea that maybe it means kind of the silhouette that the mountain tattoos in the sky. But it is linked to an old myth about a giant bird that carried one of the priests, our old time priests, and a feather dropped and it carried that name. Yeah, so it's an old name, but it's also a name present in my Rotorua Te Arawa tribes. But actually I haven't inherited that name through that line. I've inherited an East Coast version. So whenever I'm in Rotorua, our people always go, hey, how come you got that name? You're not from our family. And no. It's a different one. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, in terms of tāmoko, I'm sure the name planted a seed, because since I was young, I've always been connected to moko in some way. I've always been processing it in some way, aspiring to be part of the movement and the tradition. So I think it did plant seeds, and then I think it's been a point of encouragement and a point of It's a name to live up to. As soon as you start to align with it, you can't
Yes.
live up to it, or you can't not live up to it. Yeah.
So, speaking about that, what brought you into the realm of Tamoko when you started? What were your influences and things like this?
The influences, I'd say, it is just being exposed to our art forms. When you're part of the culture and you're going to marae and you're going to cultural events, either the carvings are there and they're really potent, powerful, graphic carvings. Those have an effect, or they are the old paintings and photographs of our ancestors, which we kind of revere. And seeing those markings. Oh, here's my daughter. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
So, yeah, seeing the photos is always really powerful, and seeing the scarification that's present in those old photos is quite tēnā is quite potent. And at the same time, when I was young, that was kind of that revival, that next generation of revival was happening. So cousins of mine were picking up the machine and were being those arrowheads back home. And that was really, really impressive to see them, and kind of, inspired me, but also really intimidated me. So, yeah, I think the first steps towards that was experimenting on myself, trying to make tools, trying to tattoo myself, and just taking those tentative steps of trial and error, and too afraid to ask someone to be a teacher. So you try it yourself, and then you go, well, it's too deep, it's too much, you can't do this without a teacher.
Maybe I need a guide.
Yeah, for sure. And then who's the right guide, and how do you align with them? And everyone's got different things to teach. So then there's that, and then my actual path was more in theatre and performing arts at that time. So I was more involved with that, just because school and then university, and I seemed to get a momentum in that world, and really found it interesting, and took it as far as I needed to take it at that time. And then I found I really needed to pivot and come back to the culture, come back to the things about the culture that I wanted to dig my hands into, and work with my hands, as opposed to working with theatre, which can be very ephemeral. So I wanted a bit more concreteness. I wanted sculpture, and I wanted painting, and I wanted marking, and those kinds of things. I took that as far as I did, and then I realized I wanted to come back home and learn, or even go to Japan.
Did you start from the beginning with the traditional tools, or did you also practice a bit the machine?
Straight to traditional tools. I made those tools, and tried to make them as best as I could without any teacher. But really, I wasn't interested in the machine, and the people I know were way better at the machine than I would ever be. So I didn't bother, I just knew that they were masters at that, and it was fine. That was safe.
Okay. So because for my very, I would say, little knowledge, traditional tools works, of course, way different than the machine. And also, can you maybe explain which can be the differences? Because as I see, also maybe in the patterns that you can make, the level of details that you can make with the traditional tools is different. Maybe the healing part is different. And before you touched upon the paintings of the ancestors and the scarification, because back then with that tools, that was the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is different to the machine. It has its own characteristics, and kind of the more you work with the tools, the more the tools tell you what they are happy to make, and you learn to work with that. And particularly at the beginning, once you get a bit more comfortable and confident, then you can start to push the tools against the grain. But yeah, you do have to design very differently to the machine. There are things I'd love to do, but the time and the effort with the tools compared to what can be achieved with the machine is so big, such a big difference that you realize, that's a machine realm of artistic expression, and this is a tool realm. Yeah, I guess by making the tools yourself, sharpening the teeth, sitting in the positions, holding the tools, you realize the limits of them, and then you design. You start to get into that logic and that sensitivity and design according to the tools. That's created its own aesthetic, I think, and the more you look at old drawings and paintings, you kind of, things reconfirm themselves, and you get, instead of aspiring for this, you might aspire for that, and aspire more to head towards older ways of designing. And there's such a beauty in that. There's such a kind of balance of complexity and simplicity, which the old world captured. And there's an organicness, like the ink is not laser sharp lines. The way it heals, it kind of spreads over time and gets stronger as opposed to maybe weaker, like the machine does. They have their own beauty. It's, wabi-sabi. It's a term that's thrown around these days, but it does feel right for this work, because as much as I try to make really balanced, sharp designs, the tools will always do something to just bring it out of that a little bit, and that's awesome. A large part of tattooing is surrender, right? Is acceptance, both to the pain, to the process, to the artist's design, to trials and tribulations in life that we mark on ourselves. But also, the line's not laser sharp like we see in Instagram photos. Sometimes you get blowouts on parts of the body, and these are little challenges that for the modern mind can be good things to digest. And for our old people, they were just proud, they were just proud as.
Yeah.
And happy they didn't die, because
True.
it was a dangerous process. Now, if you get an infection, that's a really rare occurrence. But, back in the old days.
Yes, but also healing an infection nowadays is way easier.
For sure.
Yeah. But
And in terms of
also,
healing, actually, the tools force you to be a sensitive tattooer, if you are in tune with them. So the skin heals really fast. Honestly, everyone's really surprised how quickly the lines heal, how settled the skin is within hours.
okay, I didn't expect that actually, because I also had this idea that maybe it could take maybe a little bit longer than the machine, but
No. It's great. People are really happy.
yeah. And in terms of patterns, because you've said that there are limits in a way, so where you draw your knowledge for these patterns, because of course I saw your works, and of course, as we said, they look very different from the portfolio of artists that do Moko with machine.
Yeah. Range of sources. From the beginning, I was working more with our geometric patterns. So
Yeah.
because I started learning in the Cook Islands, the patterns there are more geometric, and that's what my teacher was practicing. So that was the easiest thing for him to teach me and to get used to. So within the geometric world, you kind of draw more from the carving and the weaving patterns. By the time I come back to Aotearoa and was, wanting to push it a bit more, and do koru and do puhoro and these kinds of things, you look straight towards kōwhaiwhai, which is our rafter painting, and the more flowing work that you see within our wood carving. Yeah, the tupuna photos. There's a couple of images in different books, in manuscripts, which show old examples of puhoro and raperape.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like, okay, how do we get to that? This is where I am now. That's the goal. How do we fill in between? And so it's taken probably 7 years to fill in that gap. And now we're doing it, And now the kind of goalposts have shifted from, we're always aspiring to do as well as the ancestral images, but now I'm shifting focus more towards the face and the men's face.
Because like looking at old portraits, you see those mataoras and they are incredible.
Massive artistry.
Massive.
Inohokwa? Ka hera ko Francesca. So Hina is asking if you are Francesca.
No.
So I have a student, Francesca Contaldo, also known under Stelle Marks.
Yes, I follow
Puglia.
her.
Yeah.
I know.
And I've just flown back to Puglia 2 days ago.
Okay.
So we have, on top of my focus, my personal focus for the art form and the revival, I've got 4 students, and Francesca's an exception because she's Italian, and she's focusing on her Italian research, which is really exciting. And then I've got a Rarotongan Samoan student, and then I've got a Māori student, and then I've got a Samoan Māori student. So it's a very dynamic studio that we have. There's a lot of different influences coming on in and out, and some days your mind is thinking about moko kanohi, and some days it's thinking about Francesca's rock paintings and pottery.
Yes, I mean, when I saw her, I was like, she is living my dream life, definitely. Yeah, and that's cool because also the fact that she is researching those kind of old patterns here in Italy, even because each region of Italy has totally a different past, different influences from different people. So really, you need to dig a lot to discover these things, even because, of course, after the unification of Italy, there was the attempt to unify the country, of course, to find something that could bring everyone together.
Homogenize and unify, and and she always finds it really complicated to explain what she's doing because there are so many layers, and there's local histories that most people, we get some northern Italians coming in, they have no idea what she's talking about. It's just a different realm.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Down south.
Now that it's several years that you are into the practice, how do you feel giving people moko? Because it's something that can be, and often is, I would say, very personal, and people, go into the session maybe sharing very sensitive parts of their lives.
I'm always honored. I'm always so honored to be trusted with that kind of process with people. And I'm my mother's son, My mum is a very compassionate person. She is known in the Māori world for this, and I think I've inherited that side of her. So I enjoy listening to people and sharing a time of opening up and digging into ourselves, and I guess trying to find or reveal something deeper in ourselves that we want to connect to or pull out or honor something that we already have done. I just really believe that that's such an important thing to do for humanity, for people, whether we're Māori, whether we're from overseas. We all need that in this world. And I think there's tā moko as a cultural practice, but then a tattoo as an art form in general, I think it has that power. You know, it has a strong part to play in our psychological development as humans, if you tap into it that way. So I think the meditative and ritualistic nature of moko with the uhi helps that come to the front. And I love that dynamic, you know, in a world, if I wasn't picking up kids from school and having to run in a capitalist world, I would do things very differently. You know, I'd be like, hey, we're living in a tent for 3 days and you're not allowed to talk to anyone and you have to go swim in the waterfall. And, you know, I'd set up those old processes that used to exist that, you know, it's difficult to do that stuff these days. Or you make some fancy Balinese retreat for $3,000 and, you know, and that's not what we need to do either. So we try to do the best that we can within the juggle of life that we have in the city. Yeah, I think Māori and non-Māori seem to get a lot out of being marked.
Yeah, even because what always fascinated me about tattooing is that, I mean, here in the West, I feel like that is always seen as a very recent practice, but actually it's as old as the human being. And this, I would say, deep need of people to mark themselves. And really, it happened everywhere in the world and is very ancient. And also what fascinates me is that in traditional tattooing in different cultures, there is also sometimes you see that they tattoo the same body areas, and that's really fascinating.
For sure. Yeah. We trip out on that a bit. You know, how come those Algerians have got chin tattoos as well? How come those Chinese old women have got chin tattoos? You know, right up into Croatia, and you're going, what? Egypt.
Yes, like why women and the chin, why there is always this connection. It's awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's mysterious. I have my theories, but who knows?
You can share.
Well, I just think in a lot of, maybe not all, but a lot of cultures, the woman's voice has a potency to it and has wisdom in it, and perhaps it's marking that kind of region of the mouth to give weight, to give gravity to the words of those people. But also the mouth is, we have patterns that relate to the mouth, but also relate to the vagina, you know, in the birthing canal. So I also sometimes wonder if there's like an upstairs honoring of the lower potent area. You know, because most cultures that's covered, but up here you can show it.
Yeah, true.
But I don't know if that's right. It's just a funny intuition thing that comes up. But yeah, I mean, tattooing in Europe is a very old thing. It's definitely come a long way from old, you know, village tribal tattooing in Europe. I think it's important that Europeans also know that their tattooing tradition doesn't start with sailors. You know, that's a really awesome starting point, and it's a really awesome culture to become, but it's not the only point. And seeing Otzi and those Scythians, you know, up near Russia and stuff, like those tattoos are so good. wicked design, really strong. And then the ideas around the old Scottish ancestors, the Picts, very animal-based tattoos. Some of those patterns
Yes.
look like the same as ours. It's quite crazy.
Yes. Yes. I also was talking really a while ago with a friend. He is originally from a republic of Russia. It's called the Komi Republic. And I showed him some tattoo patterns from Morocco, and there were some symbols that were the same used from the Komi people.
Wow.
And I was, yes, yes. Komi people use that maybe in not in tattooing, but in other art forms, but like
For
the
sure.
same pattern.
That's right. And those patterns do sometimes go underground and go sideways into another art form, for sure. And Francesca talks about that.
In Moko as well. Like,
Yep.
especially I see it a lot now
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of artists are also taking a lot of patterns from the weaving and
Yep.
bring that into also
Yep.
Moko with machine.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't really seen as much 20 years ago, 15 years ago. There's a little bit, but not that much. Now we've got more confident with that because I think there's a feeling of, oh, that's not moko, But now we're more comfortable and we're more flexible, and I think people have got more design, inspiration, and being inclusive with our other art forms. But what I love about that, and what I love to tap into, is that a lot of those weaving patterns and the carving patterns are seen in the Pacific Islands, and often with similar names, a little bit, or sometimes not. Sometimes a totally different story. But through those we can see the echoes of us being a connected people, and I love marking them because it helps bridge that gap, which like in the last 1,000 years has become a really distant gap between us. But before that, we were always traveling between each other. So it's nice to have those moments of connection.
I have a curiosity about puhoro.
Yeah.
Like, there is the rape design that is usually done on the buttocks, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I see it in the lateral part.
Yep.
So why?
You've probably seen where we tattoo the rape. We tend to put it on the side, and the center of that the center of that spiral, the place of origin. I call it the tumu, being in that pocket in the hip,
Yes.
right? And behind that is the femur coming into the hip socket. So for
Yeah.
me, that's the origin of movement, and the pattern has an origin point in the center of it. So it only makes sense that those two align. And the puhoro is all about forward movement. So to honor the center and the origin of movement is a meaningful thing. It's also your biggest muscle. It's also a center of sexuality and power and creation and energy. So it makes sense to honor that. But I'm not making this up just from like daydreaming.
Nice.
I've got somewhere. I've got some photos. They're photos of ancestors with them clearly on the side,
Okay.
and then there are drawings of them with it slightly behind, kind of halfway between the very back of the rump and the side here.
Okay.
And there's ones where they're directly on the back. So we've got a three versions really, and for me, I kind of ask myself: are these tribal variations? Are these just the artist going, "Ah, nah, it's easier to do it this way"? finding like a progression in the process, a technical progression in the process, and then so they've decided to do it that way? Or is it based on the body type, and just for that body, that placement helps bring out that body shape better way? So
That's really interesting.
yeah, I've done about 6 on the side, or maybe 8, and then I've done 1 on the back, 2 on the back, and now I've done 2 on the side, in between. And the last rapi I did on a wahine, on a woman, was just the in between one, and it just worked so good for her. So yeah, that got me excited, because I thought I was going to commit to my way of doing it, and actually, you live and you learn, and you go, oh, there's wisdom.
Or maybe you needed to try all the ways to just have a grasp on the differences between them, and
For sure.
maybe find the answer on why the ancestors
For
choose
sure.
different places.
There's a constant research, but I think also parallel to that is trying to figure out what to do for women, what to do for men, and
Yes.
we're leaning more towards a lighter version. I can see that in general, moko artists are searching for something puhoro-like but lighter for wahine. Personally, I want coverage. I don't want to skip skin. I just want to maybe get a different balance between ink and skin. But yeah.
Yes, I had as guest Te Hanui Tuna, and recently, more or less, he had done a puhoro on a wahine, and it was a new concept, I would say,
Sure.
and really it had a very different balance between skin and ink, like a lot of skin, a lot of non-tattooed skin and ink, and
Yeah.
it's really fascinating to see all those experiments.
For sure. And it feels like that. It feels like people have got a confidence now to branch out, to explore and find different layouts, different combinations of weight and balance and flow. And it's really exciting, to see what Te Haunui did, and a couple of other people. It just gets us thinking and questioning what's possible, what we've taken for granted. And yet you still have to make sure it's grounded in a Māori aesthetic and a Māori sensibility, so that our people don't go, I don't connect with that. There's always a fine line. But yeah, it's interesting.
Because it's in the nature of things to evolve and progress,
Sure.
it's pretty normal, and that there is this kind of trying something new
For sure.
from the artists, even because I feel that puoro is truly, I guess, really cool to experiment with, because you have really a large surface of the body. And really, anytime I see one, unfortunately I never saw one in real life. I hope to do it soon.
You'll have to come down here and ask the men to take all their pants off. And they'll all be very happy to.
And it sounds really a good idea. But really, my dream, it is to come in New Zealand. Oh no,
Yep,
actually, you know who will be here in June? Fern Gatai will be here tattooing, and
yesterday.
has.
And she's got a fantastic rapi. You have to ask her to show you. And she'll be tattooing with Marco Wallace. And I was hoping Francesca would get to go up there and hang out with them, but I think they have too much family things to do. Fern's got beautiful rapi and Paituara, the back area.
Yes, I saw it in photos, of course, and it's really, even because it's very particular, considering what I usually see in puro,
Well,
like the
Tristan,
usual flow.
I mean, he's got a very strong design style, and he's a trained carver. You know, he's got a particular depth of training and drawing, and it's really good. It's really good.
It is.
The puhoro it's funny, because personally, I see it as coming to the forefront of Māori tattoo aspiration, inclination, because we all are not quite ready to be wearing it on our face. And so to wear it on the lower region is actually an easier step. Although it's way more to receive, I think it's more approachable for this modern day. So it's getting a lot more attention than I think it ever did. I think before, in the old days, it was really only the high level chiefs and warriors who had it, because the focus was on facial work.
Yeah.
And now the tables have turned, and it might turn again soon. The way things are going, I think we're going to be heavily tattooed people in 20 years.
And that's cool. I really can't wait, honestly, to see it.
And there's going to be great variety. Already people are just stepping out to the left and stepping out to the right and just trying new things. And it's an exciting time. It's really an exciting time.
Yeah, so talking about that, the revival more or less started in the 70s, 80s, but I would say that in the last years, really, there are more kaififi, more kaita out there practicing. Do you see and feel that shift?
Oh, yeah. Totally. I didn't get to go to the Matatini, which has just been, 2 months ago? But apparently it was just so powerful for all the puhoro and all the moko kanohi, all the facial markings, just walking around. Like it was on a level that no one had really experienced before. Because it used to be all drawn on with a vivid, a Sharpie.
Yes.
And now it was like 4 or 5 people wearing facial moko in each group. And then, from what I hear, all the fellas in the audience, and people came to get their markings, like, wow, I can't believe it. We're really stepping into it. So when I go back to the marae, yep, you see that. But I live in a bubble, like I go to work, I come home, I pick up the kids, I look after the house, I go back to mahi. I don't really see many people outside of my routine. So I am a little bit out of touch as well. But I feel it. I think we all feel it. We all see a bit more. Less in Auckland, they are around, but there's just so many people here, you don't quite see it in the street. But you go down to the Māori centres, you see it.
I recently saw an episode of the series Pathfinders with Gordon Toy.
Yeah.
And that was good. And he said that he sees the work he does in Moko as a political stance. Knowing a bit what's going on in New Zealand, Aotearoa at the moment.
Yeah.
I feel that probably it is, but what's your take on that? And is that the same for you?
Oh, totally. The current political situation now is not good, but it never has been. It's been terrible for Māori from the beginning. We've always been in a place of resistance or assimilation, but we're stepping into our own. And so, it is a very political act. I think it felt sharply political in the earlier days. If you're in the city, if you're in the Māori regions, in the rural regions, I don't think it was so political because they live in such a Māori world. They don't have to live in opposition to the other. But when you live in the city, wearing moko you are very much the minority and the outsider. So, you're stepping into a place of opposition sometimes. But definitely moko is wearing moko, making moko is a political act. I always work on Waitangi Day. That's my little protest. We're still here. We're still doing the work. We're still marking our people. We're still telling our stories. We're still voicing our aspirations, and that has to happen on all fronts. It has to happen on the micro, intimate level and on the major levels. And I just think that they are like quiet signboards. When the markings walk around the street, they're not words, but they're definitely communicating something, even if the other side doesn't understand it. They're taking their own thing, and it might be, oh God, those Maoris are still here. We still haven't got rid of them.
Damn.
Or whatever it is, oh, he looks so beautiful. She looks so beautiful. They look so strong. They look so happy.
Yeah, like when I will come in New Zealand, I will probably be that person. I mean, I will stare anyone, but because of the fascination of it. Because there is, I don't know. I started to be fascinated with Moko, the beginning probably just for the aesthetic. It's just completely different from any other tattoo tradition. It has this flow, this way of being organic that it's completely unique. And then when I got into it, the fact that all the Maori realm is interconnected is also something that fascinated me a lot. You can't, as I always say, focus purely on Moko. You have to look also at the other art forms and see also the context of where Moko is practiced. And yeah, and this deep connection also with nature is something that I like. It's another aspect that I truly, really admire of the art form.
For sure. I mean, personally, living down here, we are the same as well. We look at other artists' work and you're just like, whoa, how did you pull that out? Like, how are you so connected that you can pull that out? It's just, it is unbelievable seeing that level of work coming out. But I also see it in other cultures who are tapped into their natural resources and traditional crafts. And often I'll watch some craft video on YouTube from Japan, from Korea, from Europe, from wherever, the islands, just to re-inspire, just to like feed in that energy of craftsmanship and sensitivity to material and process and quality and tradition. And I kind of use it as my like little energy top up. But yeah, it is incredible what people can pull out of a connection to nature and culture.
Yeah, we've said that there are more and more kaita around now, but I see that a lot of them are practicing with the machine. Do you feel that there are also more artists interested in practice with the traditional tools? Because I see that group is very limited, I would say.
Not really. I think it's a timing thing. I just think some things just have a timing, and a majority of the people can be in love with, let's say, the machine work, some part of the culture, and they're just happy with that and they just want that. And slowly that comes to a natural place of, cool, I've had a lot of that. What's the other? So I think there's a wave, and we're somewhere at the beginning of that wave. When I came to my teachers, my teacher, Inia Taylor, he was like, back then, no one wanted this work. People would say, I didn't come here on a waka, I want the machine. You know, this idea of like the old world, we don't need it. We've got better, we've got more efficient, we've got more effective means. And that's the attitude of a time. And I think, time just changes and people have a taste for something else when the time's right. So, yeah, I think I hear people say, oh, I want to learn to use the uhi. I want to learn to tap. But the reality is it's a complete shift in the way of living. Like, you don't just pick it up like you pick up a paintbrush or a chisel. Like, you have to change to do that work. You have to go do yoga and open your hips up so you can sit on the ground for hours. So you can even do a straight line, while your legs are screaming at you.
Yes.
Like you have to change your body, and our bodies are made for couches and office chairs now. They're not made for sitting on the floor. And that's an invitation, Uhi is an invitation for everyone. Hey, we came from sitting on the whairiki, on the mat, on the floor. Like, we don't have to be away from Papa Tuanuku forever. We don't have to be away from sitting on the earth forever. Like, maybe this is our invitation. Come back to those ways of living. It's better for our body. It's better for our health. We're more connected. You slow down. You talk differently when you slow down. And I think people aren't ready for it. But there will be those few somewhere out there. But then, do they have the patience? Do they have the availability? Do they have the artistic, drive? Do they have the connection to the culture? Like, there's so many aspects that you have to weave in to hold that place, because you end up being an ambassador for the tools, If you were one amongst 200 artists, different. But because this is the beginning, you want to start it off properly. But, I might be totally wrong about that too. And,
we will discover it.
We will discover it. And Māoris are tattoos, Māori will just do it anyway. And someone somewhere will rise up and become a prominent tattooer, and we'll see when that day comes. Maybe it's in a year, maybe it's in 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I am seeing this shift of mentality a bit here. Like the fact that we are starting really to feel the disconnection from the earth, and like the stress of living, continuing to running around and strive for also perfection, which is another theme that we touched upon before. Like the fact that now everyone expects the perfection in absolutely any aspect of their life, but this is not really the reality of it. And so there is a bit more from the new generations here, even under the point of view of working and things like this, of slow down, slow down and start to live more also for yourself, for your health, and start to be more out in the nature and things like this.
I think in the Māori world, people are already living nice and slow to some degree, so I think a lot of people are not looking for it in the moko practice. Whereas Europeans, it's the other way around. They're trying to search for something to tap into to get that way of being or that energy from. So for Māori, it's very easy to go with the machine because they're already living like that. Yeah, I can see it, with AI, with internet, with information coming at you all the time. You want to slow down or you want to step out.
Yes.
The dream of stepping out. But
we are not really designed for it, for having
not at all.
this
Not at all.
load. So now there will be the second, and usually it's the shorter part of this chat, which is about non-Maori and it focuses on it. So, do you use the term kirituhi? Do you find any difference between kirituhi for Pakea or anyway non-Maori and Moko? Do you differentiate these two concepts?
Personally, I don't. Of course, I'm aware of it, but it's not a term I use. It's not a differentiation I feel I have to make. If clients say that, then I'm happy for them to run with that. And if my Māori clients say that, I have no problems with it. I think it's a natural distinction to make. But I don't push it as a concept because I just don't think that's the thing that I need to focus on. And I think it came forward at a time in the revival when there was a lot of sensitivity. There's a lot of Māori who weren't marked, and generally those who are not marked are more protective of the art form. They're more judgmental, they're more restrictive. And I think it was a term that helped care for the sensitivities of the people at that time. And it comes from a cosmological reference. It comes from a mythology, that word. So, it's not just plucked from nowhere. It totally makes sense.
You can tell it if you want.
Well, no, I won't. That's
Okay.
my corpora and his students. But I just think I'm happy to call it moko because that's what our ancestors called it, and they were happy to put moko on non-Māori when they turned up here.
Barnett Burns è forse l'esempio più celebre di un Pākehā mau moko, cioè di un non Maori portatore di moko. Si pensa che sia nato a Liverpool, in Inghilterra, nel 1806 o nel 1807. Durante il suo soggiorno nella penisola di Mahia, Burns era protetto da Te Aria, il capo di Ngāti Kahungunu. Per questo Burns sposò Amotawa, la figlia di Te Aria. Sul viso e sulle cosce Burns portava il moko, mentre le sue braccia e il suo petto erano ricoperti da tatuaggi che seguivano lo stile dei marinai.
Sometimes as a way of claiming them, and sometimes just as a form of exchange, and I don't think we have to differentiate, but it's fine if we do. And there has to be room within an art form for there to be different approaches.
Yeah, so we can say that your approach is not really different from Maori and non-Maori if they would like to receive moko.
The approach is mostly the same, but just the level of depth you go to is different, and the level of referencing is different. Designs pulling back into cultural references is not the same. And for me, the difference is it's your blood, it's your DNA, it's your soul, it's everything that you are makes it different. There was a lot of moko kauae which looked exactly the same between recipients. Mm-hmm. And it's their blood, it's their genealogy that makes it unique to them. It's not, and their experience and their story. It's not that the design has to be 45,000 varieties of a moko kauae. Our ancestors were happy for the individual to just wear it, and the individuality is their point of difference.
In an old interview, you've said that probably at the beginning there were more tourists getting moko than Maori. Do you feel that?
Yeah, for my journey.
Yeah, for your journey. Do you feel that moko is something that tourists still would like want to receive when visit Aotearoa? And what are the most common placements and sizes?
Definitely, yeah. When I first started out, not many Māori wanted moko with the traditional tools, at least not from me. Maybe they wanted it, but they didn't trust me, or they didn't like my art form, my artwork. But yeah, I had a lot of German, French, Italian, Swiss, American tourists, English tourists come in, and they're the ones Googling, they're the ones searching out these unique things to this land. And so they come across me and my teachers, and I learned a lot working with them. So I'm super appreciative of that time. Those recipients were trusting, they were honored, I was honored, I learned a lot, and that set me up to be able to do what I do now. And come to COVID, probably doing 80% tourists, 70% tourists, 20 or 30% Māori Pacific Islanders. And then COVID come in, boom, New Zealand lockdown for ages. And within a month, I was having much more messages from Māori, and all my emails coming in were from Māori. And I was like, well, finally, I can respond to my clients in Māori. This is cool. Which is one of my dreams, to use our language in the studio for the work. So that was an awesome turnaround. And after COVID, it was 90% Māori Pacific and 10% tourists. And it's stayed like that since. Now I have like one French or German person a month, and that's it.
Okay.
And that's it feels really good, because this art form's for our people. Number one, it's for us to lift ourselves and prepare ourselves to live in this world. And secondary, it's for us to share with others. And I think it is important to share it.
Yeah, this topic of sharing, I feel it's a very interesting one inside the Maori culture and Moko, because of course at the beginning it was more about protecting an art that was nearly completely lost.
For sure.
So now maybe there is, you see more Maori people who are wearing it. Maybe there is more the feeling of sharing it, because being a non-Maori, of course, myself, I kind of felt this very protecting environment, and so the need of being very careful when approaching someone, because I'm not doing it with the wrong intentions, I believe.
Sure.
And actually, as I always say, the reason why behind this blog is because here in Italy specifically, but I believe in the Western world as well, there are people call Maori tattoos that are not really Maori, because they don't have the patterns. So yes, so I was like, it is good to share what Maori tattoos really are.
Yeah.
Are there people from abroad that traveled specifically to receive a Moko from you?
Yep. I have, the obvious one is Māori from the South Island, which is a different island, feels like a different country.
Okay.
And Australia, those are the two obvious ones, whānau flying in from those places. But otherwise, I get the occasional person who's come in from America, from Germany specifically to get marked.
Well, Germany, it seems that is really interested.
I think there's a big interest in New Zealand with nature and outdoors and a sense of freedom. Germans often are really searching for freedom. A lot of the tattoo requests are freedom, and
Really?
It feels like it. Oh yeah, it feels like it's a very restrictive culture that has a lot of inflexibility in it, a lot of demand in it, and so when they come here, they kind of breathe like they've never breathed before, and then they're kind of like, oh my God, this freedom concept, and I have to say, yeah, nice. But nothing about tribal culture is about being free.
No,
it's all about
indeed.
being, responsibilities, which I'm really bad at, But
actually, I lived in Germany for some time because I had a boyfriend there, and there is also this. They pay really importance to pass some time outdoor. Really, it's something that I noticed right away, because in Italy usually we don't have it. Like in the weekends, people spend their time going maybe in the mall and go for shopping.
Right.
While when I was in Germany, like every Sunday, I was with my boyfriend's family, and we went outside. They played sport, or
Mm.
we went for a walk,
Yeah,
biking,
very
things like
active.
this. Like,
That's right. They love it here.
yeah,
And they have since, like, a lot of Germans and Swiss came here in the 70s and lived a very different life to what they had over there. So it is kind of it's a common thing. Now, where were we going with that? What was the question again?
no, I mean, there was no question. The next question is if if you ever thought to travel to Europe to practice, or did you had the chance to do it in the past?
I came to Europe with my teacher, Croc, my first teacher,
Hmm.
Croc Tatao, and that was his last trip to Europe and to go back home. He knew his health wasn't good. So that was a really special trip to go through some of his main studios he had been touring through for years, and make those connections, meet those practitioners, hear the stories, that they shared together. So we tattooed in Holland and Germany and England, and went back to the studio, Into Tattoo, which was closing down, which is where he first had his legs tattooed, and that was kind of his big turnaround in his life. So I got to see a bit of Croc's history, and I'd already lived in Europe for 3.5, 4 years, so 4.5 years. I knew Europe. I really enjoy the variety of cultures and history and everything, but our art form belongs in the Pacific, and
Yeah.
it feels disconnected over there. It's such a dense history over there that it's just overwhelming the little bubble of culture that we try to make and maintain. So I didn't feel like it was the right place for the art form, and yet the exchanges we had with the people were all really great. People were super appreciative. You could see they got something out of it. So it feels good to do that, but it's not something I want to do regularly. It's not, I mean,
Okay.
hey, one day I really want to tattoo in a castle, you know, in an old monastery. So if anyone out
Yeah.
there's got a chateau in France or a castle in Italy or Scotland,
Wow.
shout out
That would be cool.
for sure. And we'll make it a week-long castle hangout. Um,
Nice.
but that's how I felt in the cities. We didn't tattoo rurally. So, I think
Yeah.
tattooing under an olive tree, under a fig tree, well, no, those are food trees. We don't work around food. Under an oak tree somewhere,
Yeah.
that's a different thing. Tattooing around old stones, that's a different thing. And I don't know much about those places, but we would still feel foreign, but it's more on the same level, and
Yeah, you are still more connected with Earth,
yeah,
at least.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
there's plenty of places in Europe that still have that connection. It's just not really, connected to the tattoo world.
Closing this interview, what would you advise to non-Maori if they would like to receive Moko in a proper way, I would say?
Come down to the Pacific. Come to the people in their home areas, because that's where the greatest sense of context is. Even in the city, it's still a context of Māori islanders living in the modern world in a modern context, trying to carry the culture forward. And I think it's a really awesome thing for people from Europe and elsewhere to experience. There's just a slightly different way of being, which you can't really put into words. And then when you travel, you pick up a feeling of the environment and the culture that just helps explain a little bit the art form, the markings, where it comes from, why it's like that. And I think we take on these markings because we want to change something in ourselves. You know, we want to grow up into something just a little bit bigger than what we are right now, maybe to like extend ourselves a bit wider or whatever it is. So I think just getting the marking doesn't do that. The travel and the cultural moments and the human moments help to the bottom of the iceberg. You know, if I was to go to Tibet and get a marking, but if I got the Tibetan marking in Australia, two very different things, you know. Once you walk the temples and walk the mountains and ride on a yak, you know, like, you know where those markings are on a saddle, those markings are on a set of cupboards, those markings are in the temple.
Yeah.
And all of that kind of comes through into you in some way. You drink the water, you know, you breathe the air of that place. You hear the songs. You know, all of that has a way into your markings and into your psychological relationship to those markings. So definitely come down here if you can. It's also a really big, hard thing to do in life, but maybe that's what people need. You know, maybe people need that step out to taste something different. But who knows, man? Carbon footprints are also a terrible thing. Research is hard, you know. People come saying, "Oh, I've done my research," and they read a whole bunch of websites written by a German guy.
No,
You know, and you're just like, "Oh
that.
no, sorry, bro, that's like fake Tahitian stuff, and that's a mash-up Marquesian stuff, and it's got nothing to do with us."
Yes.
You know, those websites are not helpful.
Yes, I know. I saw a lot of them.
Yeah. If you want to read good books, there's even some books that are, you know, like at universities, they're not allowed to teach from them because they're complicated. There's mixed up information in them. But one really good book I'd recommend is this book. Yeah, that's a stunner. Michael King or the old Kuya in there. And another book that I recommend, Horatio Robley. And Horatio Robley's writings, he was an English major. He was in the military, but he married into a Māori tribe. And so he got really close to the tattooing process and ended up collecting those heads. There's a photo of him with dried heads.
Yes, I saw it.
You know, and he had a relationship to them, and that he was trying to get them back to New Zealand from England. So his writings are really interesting, and he's an outsider, but he still records some things that are really important to help us revive the art form. And there are bits of his writings, I think, on the Journals of the Polynesian Society website. Yeah. So there's good reading there. You don't have to buy the book because good luck.
Yeah, I know because I tried.
You know, if there's like information you can read, it's written by outsiders, but they can be helpful. The other one is Rahui Te Awe Kōtuku's book, Momoko.
And to find that one was a journey in itself.
Totally. You come to New Zealand and you go to the library and read it. But,
but no, actually, I was lucky enough that I could find a copy in English because you can find a lot of copy in French language, but I don't speak French.
Right.
Yeah, and they are pretty economic, like 20 euros, and you have the book.
Cheap.
True. Yes. Yep. But the unfortunate part is that I don't speak French, so it was like I can't buy this book because it would make no sense. I would understand nothing
it's worth
of
it
it.
for the photos.
Yeah, it is, but I wanted also to know what it's written. So I had the really big luck to find a copy in English on the website Abe Books.
Yep.
And
Cool.
yes, and I paid it a little, but it was worth it 100%. Like, and it was so rare and so difficult to find.
Yeah. And that book's from the 2000s, surge in the revival. You know, there's heaps of moko coming out. There's well-trained artists around the country, and it's really taking off. So you hear stories of that. Yeah, there's an energy in those stories. There's a pain, there's a pride, there's a healing in those stories. And same thing today, hasn't changed, but you can really feel it potent in that book.
Yes. I really enjoyed it indeed when I've read it. It probably that book gave me really the first real kick into Tamoko and all the process and all the stories from the
But
artists behind it.
I'd say beyond tattoo and moko books, you have the documentaries, you have the Skin Indigenous, you have the Moko series for hearing stories from the artists rather than the receivers. But to go even further than that, the history is important to understand. You know, the dynamics of colonialism and indigenous rights, as you say, it's political. You know, it's right behind everything that Māori do. So we're still fighting for that equality today. So to read books, I don't know good history books, but I'm guessing Michael King's book on history of New Zealand or the Māori Land Wars series on YouTube. You know, those are good things to understand the mood of the history and the injustice, and therefore the reasons why Māori are protective and sometimes suspicious of non-Māori, or even suspicious of Māori.
Yeah, indeed. I always say it on my page that it's also important to exactly look at the context. Like,
For sure.
I also am following also what is happening right now in New Zealand, in Aotearoa, and really it is still very powerful to push also with Maori art and being Maori. It still needs to be done, and it's sad actually.
For sure. Yeah. But the thing is, we are only one, and we have it easy in a way that we are a singular people now. You know, our tribes are very close to each other in similarity, so we can unite under a movement very easily. Other cultures don't have it the same, and it's more fractured. There's more variety, there's more politics, and and so when people say, hey, I don't know if I have the right to receive these markings, is it all right if I receive these markings? I'll say, often my response is, as long as you have a place in your heart for Indigenous rights, that's Māori in my context, but it's Papua New Guinea, it's Aboriginal Australia, that's Native American, that's Native Canadian, Hawaiian, all of these places or minority groups where their ways of being have been come at with prejudice and come at with domination. And so when you receive these kind of sacred markings or really special parts of a culture, you don't want to just take the best and leave. You want to receive and make sure that it's feeding something in you that helps you be a better person in the world, and hopefully this is the way I see it, right? That will echo out, and it might affect Māori Indigenous people, but it might affect other Indigenous people, or it might affect other people around you who have contact with those people. So for me, it's all about planting seeds, and we never know how those seeds grow in people and where they go in their life, but the hope is it helps expand them and deepen them, and they will have a positive effect in the world. And we have a whakatauki, we have like a proverb, whaia ngā mahi o rarohenga, and that's to follow the ways of Rarohenga, the underworld.
Yeah.
And for us, that's that's a reminder to try to hold to the right path.
Yes.
That we are human. We definitely make mistakes. We definitely do things we regret. But there's, within the mythology, there's always a chance to be called out for what you did, apologize for what you did, come back onto the right path.
Yeah.
And that's a constant, and I think come to receive markings from Māori, for sure, understand us. But whatever those exchanges are, you go to New York, you realize that Manhattan is a bastardization of the native way of saying the name for their place, and that sensitivity to indigenous peoples and lost ways is relevant in these places you wouldn't suspect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually not from Italy. I was born in Crimea, the peninsula of Ukraine, and actually Crimea has its own indigenous people, and they are the Crimean Tatars, and they
Right.
faced, yeah, the oppression from imperialistic Russian before, but still now a lot of them had to flee the peninsula. A lot of their graves were destroyed, as well as monuments, as well as the names of the cities were changed over time. They were deported during the Stalin era.
Wow.
And yeah, so I'm always really, I would say, very near to these topics because I see it. But I'm also near to this
For sure.
topic even here in Italy,
For
that
sure.
is actually happening the opposite way around. We are closing as a nation to protect something that in our case is just a way to, I would say, it's just a way to feel entitled to
Yeah.
hate the other one, you
Yeah.
know? So I really had this morning a conversation with a woman about this, because there is now the discussion in Italy to lower the time frame of requesting Italian citizenship from 10 years to 5 years.
10 years.
Yeah, and it's faced with a lot of racism because people don't really see the reality of what it means really to ask for Italian citizenship. It's not really that easy to get it, and after 5 years, if this law passes, it's just to request. It doesn't mean that you will automatically have it, but there is a
That's a
lot of,
closed-heartedness, right?
yeah.
I mean, people are like that here too. But when Pākehā arrived here, when settlers arrived here, we welcomed them. If they didn't shoot someone, there were instances where it was straight away warfare, but there were instances of welcoming straight away. There were instances of warfare, make peace, hanging out together. For the first 50 years, it worked. But Māori were very quick to go, you want to live here? Okay, you can have this land. Boom. Not many countries in the world say, here, have from this mountain to that river.
Not at all.
And maybe that was a mistake, but maybe it wasn't, because it's an open-heartedness we still have today. Even with the bad politics, Māori are still much more welcoming to Pākehā than Pākehā are welcoming to Māori, which is sad, but that's a philosophy. That's a way of being. In the end, it's an openness of heart, right?
Yes, it's about having the heart in the right place, and it's not always easy. It doesn't mean that it's something easy to do.
For sure. Oh, we know how to
Yeah.
change that really quick. Anyway, yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's been a good kōrero.
Yeah, definitely.
Kōrero.
And yeah. So good
Covered a range
night.
of topics.
Yes. Yes. So good night, and I hope to see you in person in my future trip
Yeah.
to
Yep.
Aotearoa.
Of course.
Yeah.
You reach out, let us know. We can see if we can mark you if you wanted.
It would be an honor, truly.
Yeah, it'd be great. So yeah, keep in contact, but also while Fern is there, you should try and jump on her table and
Oh, I will. I
yeah.
will.
You should push and shove and email her 10 times because you know she's got amazing flows, and
It is. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
if she's in your country, you should definitely make the most of it.
Yes. Yes, I will for sure. So
Yeah.
thank you and bye.
Yeah. Take care. Until next time, then. Grazie mille. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.